hour. Right now, though, we want to switch gears and head to Oregon for more of the Unspent Bullet Murder case. The defendant here, Jerod Norman, is accused of killing his girlfriend, Mariah King, last year. Authorities initially believed that King had died by suicide, but the case took a bizarre turn after the medical examiner who performed the autopsy found an unspent bullet in the victim's stomach. We've been playing a recent bond hearing this morning where the bombshell information was revealed. Let's go back in and pick it up. We're listening to audio from an officer's body cam at the time that Jerod Norman is told about King's death.
We did everything we could do. She found some cardiac medications. We were breathing for her. We put an IV in her leg bone. We gave her a bunch of medicines. At this point, there's nothing more we can do. So she has passed. There's nothing we can do at this point. What could you tell me what happened when you was she hanging on the rope with King? How did you get her down? What position was she sitting in? Do you have any idea about how long possibly she was there for? When was the last time you talked with her?
There was another officer here doing a wellness check on her. That was the last time I heard her. I went in there. She was on the floor. Her arms could reach the ground. Her butt was on the ground, but her neck was in the rope. And the rope was hanging from the hook right above where she was at.
She was
Sitting on the ground.
Her butt was on the ground.
So, officer, let me start with a few other questions for you. So you indicated 20 months you've been on the force at Sweet Home?
Yes.
So your first job as an officer?
Yeah.
So back when this happened, which was 14 months ago, you were 6 months in?
Yeah, just about.
And you were still out with a field training officer?
That's correct.
All right. And I understand the Sweet Home Police Department is a pretty small department.
Yeah.
There was just a couple officers on duty that night?
Yeah.
All right. When you got the call out to go over to the house on Nandina Street, first off, just so the judge knows, that's like you can see it from the front door of the Sweet Home Police Department, can't you?
Yeah, it's like on the other side of the lot.
It's very close. You were aware that maybe an hour and a half earlier, Officer McPherson had gone over already on a welfare check, right?
Yeah.
And that was a welfare check. If you need to refresh your memory from your report, feel free. It was a welfare check called in by Ms. King's mother over some concerns about self-harming behavior, something to that effect?
To an extent, yeah.
All right.
Counsel.
Thank you, Judge. So, you went over to the house. You approached, and on your immediate approach, you went straight for the shed, correct?
Correct.
Shed's on the left-hand side of the house?
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned this in your direct testimony. It was dark in that shed, right?
Yeah.
Almost pitch black?
Yeah, lights weren't on in there.
Right. And this was all at night, as we saw in the body cam, so very dark in there until somebody got all the lights on, right?
Yeah.
When you arrived, there was somebody bent over Miss King performing CPR, wasn't there?
There was.
Who was that?
It was Jerod.
Jerod Norman.
Yeah.
Thank you. Keeping us in sort of a narrative of how things played out, it sounds like some of the first people you talked to while the EMTs worked on Miss King were the two juveniles, Barrett and Dylan, right?
That's correct.
And they're ballpark 10 years old or so, around that age?
Yeah.
Right. Now, they both talked to you about how, essentially, and I'm paraphrasing, so correct me if I'm wrong, was a relatively normal evening. Like Dylan was saying, I was out on the trampoline, almost asleep, and Farrah was inside playing video games or something, right? And then they heard Mr. Norman screaming for help, right?
Yeah.
And that's sort of what set off everyone coming running, the 911 call, and the police and EMT response, right?
Correct.
Okay. Both of those juveniles, or maybe it was one of them at least, told you that Miss King had locked herself in that shop since before Officer McPherson had been there earlier, right?
Correct.
Neither of them talked about Mr. Norman going into the shop for any extended period of time.
Not that I recall.
Not even at all, right? During the time frame we're talking about?
Yeah.
All right. None of them said, he disappeared for a bit and there was banging from the shop. That was weird. Nothing like that, right?
Correct.
Okay. But they did talk about how he called for help, was performing CPR, calling 911, all those things, right?
Yeah.
The rope that we've been discussing was running through an eyelet that was in the ceiling of the shed, right?
Correct.
In this eyelet, there was then sort of a larger carabiner attached to it.
I'm not too familiar with how the eye looked.
That's all right. We got photos, so we don't have to spend too much time on that. But speaking of photos, let me ask you about a few of these. So we got States 11, which is a photo of a leather quiver holding what looks like about 20 rifle cartridges, yeah?
Correct.
You mentioned, where'd you find that quiver?
In one of the bedrooms.
In one of the bedrooms. It wasn't in like a locked gun safe or ammunition safe or anything, was it?
No.
Was it just kind of sitting out in the open or in a closet, like up on a shelf or something?
I believe so.
First off, in these photographs of the knife on the bed, there's this blanket here. Those are not blood stains all over the blanket, are they?
No.
It's a pattern.
Yeah.
Sort of looks similar when you put the whole packet together. Okay. As to the blood stain on the pillow, fresh or dry?
At the time, I don't remember.
No problem. Do you remember whether any of these blood stains were fresh or dry?
I can't recall.
All right. So you don't know when they got there?
No.
Could have been there for days?
Not too sure.
Right. You have no idea, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough. And that was not something that you particularly documented in any way that jumps out in your memory?
No.
That's fine. You talked about Miss King's phone and you looking through it, right?
Correct.
Were you the one that found it and powered it on and started looking through it?
It was either me or Officer Pinniger.
Do you recall if you were the one that turned it on and started looking through it? Did it power on or was it already powered on?
I don't recall.
So you looked through that phone and you read over some text messages between Mr. Norman and Miss King, right?
Correct.
And you also located a text thread between Miss King and her brother Jasper Lapham, right?
Correct.
And there was messages with the two of them, Miss King and Mr. Lapham, texting back and forth earlier that evening, right?
Can I refer to my report?
I am actually going to ask you to please do that because I want to make sure we are precise and accurate about this topic in particular. You're looking at is page 3, about the second full paragraph.
I don't recall the time when the messages were sent between the two of them.
That's okay. We have some other witnesses that might be able to address that, but let me ask you this. In those text messages, did Miss King make any threats of any kind?
She made threats of suicide.
Were you asking for permission to answer that question by looking over here?
No.
Okay. Would you please read to the judge that next paragraph of what Jasper Lapham texted back to Ms. King in response to her threat of suicide?
In the third paragraph?
Yep.
Later in the text history, Jasper told Mariah, "It's not like you wanted them anyway. Yeah, I'll just deal with Jerod after you leave. Make your choice. I'm the only one trusted, right? You just use me for your own sympathy. See you guys Monday." Only Kim would kill herself for attention. So mother like daughter. I think so. See you guys on Monday. I know who I'm looking for. See you guys on Monday. I know who I'm looking for. You're there or not. After Monday, it will be just you and your little Jerod. Cops have been notified, by the way.
Did you also locate a few other messages that seemed to have come through her email that were sort of in the same tone and flavor of this argument?
That's correct.
And did you see in the midst of Miss King's text back that she texted her brother a photo of her hand holding an item inside of that shop?
I don't recall.
Perhaps if you want to direct yourself back to that second paragraph on that same page, last sentence or two of that paragraph.
There's a photo of her holding a firearm.
Handgun
Correct.
in the shop?
Correct.
Let's talk about one last topic. So we watched a few clips of your body cam. The second clip began with Mr. Norman coming out on the porch, just standing like this with no shirt on, right?
Correct.
And that's the moment that he is informed that Miss King had passed, right?
Correct.
He has a very emotional response to that, right?
Correct.
How many hours were you at that home that night?
I don't recall the exact amount of hours that I was there for.
A couple hours at least?
At least 3 hours or more.
Did Mr. Norman continue to demonstrate a lot of similar emotional behavior throughout the night? Screaming, crying, wailing, all those things?
Yeah.
I'll check with my colleagues, but those might be all my questions for you. Just one item to clarify. Going back to the brief interview you did with Dylan Mayhew. Feel free to refresh your recollection, but do you recall if one of the things he told you was that he actually saw Miss King in the shop with the noose around her neck and all the screams for help and kind of everybody coming and running?
That's correct.
Thank you. Those are all my questions for you.